Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third playlist, wherein I have decided to cover the basic aspects of medical affairs, the medical affairs as a division. So, currently, I have thought of to cover the topic under 5 modules. The first one being this, covering the foundations of the medical affairs. Then we will have a brief course on the commonly used abbreviations, the acronyms. And then we will talk about the strict firewall separation between the medical affairs division and the commercial division of a company in the third module. In the fourth module, we will discuss about the evolving role of a medical science liaison because we have already covered the MSL in the second playlist, last module of our second playlist. And in the end, we will talk about the patient centricity. How important is it with the with the more stringent compliance guidelines. So currently, I have thought of these 5 modules for this playlist. If there is something which comes to my mind at a later stage, we'll build it uh, later on. So in this module, we will be covering the very fundamentals of medical affairs. What is it? And what roles does a person belonging to the medical affairs department performs, and then who all are part of the medical affairs team, and why exactly did it come into the picture, and so on and so forth. So let's start with the need. Why the medical affairs? So first, I mean, maybe many of you would be knowing it, but for me, it was a new learning during my professional journey that medical affairs is a department in the pharmaceutical company. So, it is a department, one of the departments in the pharma company. And traditionally, if we talk about the pharma model, generally the R&D, the research department in the pharma company, see, there are two, if we talk about science, I mean the research and scientific development departments in a pharma company, there are two. One which works on the clinical drug trials. Okay, so under R&D department, now we have two verticals. One working on the clinical trials, core science, and two, the medical affairs. So these two departments differ. How? We will talk later. So earlier, what used to happen in the pharma company, the R&D department used to take care of drug development. And then from there, the commercial department would take it up and disseminate the promotional drug information to the HCPs, to the doctors, to the clinicians. So there was a gap in the sense that this commercial guy did not know about the scientific data, scientific aspects of the medicines. And at the same time, uh, this scientific data was what the clinician needed. Clinician did not need the generic information about the drug, but he his need was the scientific data. And herein the commercial medical rep used to fail. So this was the need in the pharmaceutical company, which led to the formation of this separate department of medical affairs. So in a way, medical affairs is building a bridge between the pharmaceutical company, between the R&D department of the pharmaceutical company and the HCPs practicing medicine, right? So how does it differ from the commercial department? It its focus is non-promotional scientific information dissemination. So, a medical science liaison, the MSL, from the medical affairs team. Again, MSL is just one spoke of this broader role of medical affairs. We'll talk about it in our later slides. So, now the medical affairs became the bridge for scientific information exchange between the pharmaceutical company and the practicing clinicians. They were now the medical affairs person has a strong scientific foundation. So he is able to have a two-way conversation with the HCP, two-way scientific dialogue with the HCP. So its role now is not just to push the information out, in a way, the conversation being two-way, the medical affairs department, through the medical affairs department, the pharmaceutical company is now able to pull in the valuable insights. Something like, so for example, now this person, the MSL, can go and talk with the physician. He can understand the top three challenges which the physician is having in prescribing that particular drug. Okay, it can be cost effectiveness, it can be a particular side effect which majority of patients are coming back to him with, right? So that way, the medical affairs department has enabled the pharmaceutical company to have a two-way conversation with the real clinician who is sitting in the field, right? So, and it being two-way is very crucial because medical affairs department would be able to give authentic scientific data related to that particular drug molecule, and at the same time he would be able to bring in the field insights from the clinicians to the pharmaceutical company. So, if we want to define the department in a way, this department would be responsible for scientific communications, right? Communicating scientific and clinical information to the healthcare community in an accurate, authentic, balanced as in it should be I mean, if that person, if the MSL is from the medical affairs department is standing in front of a cardiologist and talking about the efficacy of a particular drug in HFrEF, at the same time he should be able to talk about a particular side effect if it was observed during the clinical drug trials. So that conversation has to be balanced. When you are talking about the pros, you should also be able to talk about the cons of a particular drug molecule. And certainly it will be a non-promotional conversation which the medical affairs person will have with the HCP. And herein the core mission will be, so see, that's why in earlier modules from the first and the second playlist, many a times I have stressed upon this. Now the data is the king. So scientific data. Now you can't rely on a completely commercial medical rep to go and have a valuable, have a insightful discussion with the HCP, right? Because with UCPMP into the picture, this has gone more so towards, I mean, promotional is a strict no-no from the government side also. So now the medical affairs person, the MSL, would be the best person to go and establish the company's the value of the company's product, not just on a brand recall aspect, but from a from I mean he will have data which will prove the value of the drug, right? Not just building a brand recall value, which the earlier commercial person used to do. And as we discussed, it is about science, not just the sales. It has to be trust building with the HCP. It has to be an interactive conversation. If HCP is telling you that I am having this challenge, you as an MSL should be able to respond to his query, right? Yeah, so medical affairs person will have data about the scientific accuracy. His data will be ethical in the way it will be balanced, and it will talk about the patient safety and data-driven decisions. Yeah, so now coming to the firewall, the unbreakable rule. Firewall isn't there are strict regulations that a medical affairs department has to follow, right? They differ from the commercial department of the pharmaceutical company when it comes, see, when we talk about, as we have already discussed, their goal of having conversation with the HCP would be to exchange scientific information. It will be based on the conversation would be based on science, right? And if we talk about the metrics of the two departments, for commercial, it would be figure oriented, sales driven, prescription driven, whereas for a medical affairs person, it would be trust building, quality of relationships, right? Now, if you look at the slide, there is this third pointer which talks about on-label and off-label data. So what exactly does it mean? When we consider a medical rep, what he can talk about, he can only talk about the on label isn't the prescribed, the approved indications of a particular drug. So FDA approved or EMA approved indications of a particular drug. So if a physician asks him about a particular drug, and I mean, if say for example, there is this drug which is useful as an anesthetic. However, if the physician asks him that, can I give this drug? I have seen that this drug is effective in reducing pain. What are your comments? Do you feel it is okay? So a sales rep cannot have this conversation on the off-label indications of that particular drug, whereas a medical affairs MSL can talk about the relevant data. So an MSL can go ahead and discuss with the physician that, okay, sir, we have so and so data which talks about its pain relieving symptoms of that anesthetic drug. So now the choice is yours. Again, even with that scientific data, the medical affairs MSL cannot promote, cannot recommend, cannot advocate for the drug usage. He can just support, he can just give the favorable data. And at the same time, he has also he needs to talk about the side effects also. His conversation has to be scientific and balanced, and certainly non-promotional. So both the departments are separated by a strict firewall, as we discussed. Now, if we think, if we have to jot down the roles of the medical affairs as a team, what all they are working on. They are working on the scientific exchange and insight generation, the MSL. The MSL guy will go and have that two-way scientific conversation with the HCPs. Then they are involved, the medical affairs team is involved in the data dissemination. What does it mean? Whatever clinical trials are going on, they have to, the clinical trial team is different. Okay, after this slide, we'll discuss that also. So what the medical affairs team will do, they have to develop a plan, a quarterly plan that we will publish this much clinical trial data in the peer-reviewed journals. Okay, so as as a means of data dissemination. Then they are involved in the data generation, RWE and IITs. What does that mean? RWE stands for real world evidence, and IITs are the investigator initiated trials. So, see, uh, now what happens? Okay, so herein, let me first uh, talk about the difference between the two verticals of the R&D team, which is there in the pharma. So one vertical will look into the drug development. So therein, they will work on the clinical trials. They will work on the data compilation. They will work on everything, clinical drug protocols, and then investigator brochure and everything, clinical trial reports, then even the CTDs, common technical document, right? Whereas medical affairs is working on the medical communication, the relevant scientific data related to the drug, which a clinician needs to know about, right? So whereas for this vertical of the R&D, the vertical which is working for drug development, the target audience is some regulatory authority like FDA, like EMA, like CDSCO in India. Whereas for the medical affairs, the target audience is of the clinicians. Okay. So that ways they differ in the work. They differ when it comes to the target audience they are catering to, but their roles are somewhat overlapping. So whenever the Department of Drug Development, presents their drug studies in front of a regulatory authority, uh, in a country like India, it's not just the clinical trial data. There is something called as real world evidence. So I mean, it falls under the value proposition of a drug. So because we are still the developing, we belong to the developing world. There are cost constraints involved. There is something like socioeconomic status which affects the decision making of the population when it comes to a drug. In fact, the company has to work on the value proposition when it comes to present that particular drug case in front of the payers. Now, when we say payers, what does it mean? So, in India, there are three major categories of payers for the pharma companies. First, for that particular drug. First one being the government missions such as PMJ and Ayushman Bharat. And then there are private insurance companies. And then third one being the out-of-pocket expense. I mean, the end consumer. So these three are the major categories of payers in India, Indian drug market. So when pharma is building the value proposition, therein comes the role of RWE, the real world evidence. You have to prove that your drug, why a particular person or why a private insurance company or why the government should invest in that money when already a cheaper, a generic drug solution, a standard of care for that particular disease option is already available. So that value proposition, when you have to work on, when you have to prove that this particular drug molecule is be it a costlier option, even then it would be able to increase the optimize the overall expenses on healthcare for a particular person. So, for example, this particular drug on diabetes, even though it is costlier than the standard metformin combination present in the market, but even then, this is giving the patient lesser number of hypoglycemic episodes. So in a way, this drug is reducing the hospitalization rates of that patient. So overall, if you look at the comprehensive bigger picture, you can say for your drug that overall this drug would be cost effective. So that is real world evidence you have to build on. So here comes the role of the medical affairs department. Likewise, we talk about investigator initiated trials. If a particular clinician wants to run his own clinical trial, he wants to administer your drug to a population cohort visiting him, it is called as investigator initiated trials. Again, there medical affairs department has to come into the picture. Then the other vertical which the medical department is working on is the medical information. So all the time there would be queries tricking in from the clinicians, so that drafting of evidence-based answers medical affairs department will be doing. So now about the team. There would be an MSL, as we discussed, the field-based scientific expert. There is one more module in the second playlist where I have tried to cover the basics about this role. Then the medical director, the or medical advisor, someone overseeing the entire functioning of the medical affairs as a department. Then you will have a medical information specialist, detail-oriented expert providing written and verbal responses to medical inquiries. Then publications manager who will decide on the publication plan for that particular quarter. And then there is something called as health economics and outcomes research liaison. Again, this is an overlapping role with the other vertical of the R&D department, which is involved in the into the drug development. And it again, HEOR is basically doing the same thing, working on the value proposition of the drug as a whole, taking into account the cost effectiveness from 360-degree perspective, right? Based on the overall outcomes, based on the health economics of the country, the socio-economic status, everything. So, I mean, if you have someone who has an eye for the scientific data, and if you want to do something novel other than practicing clinically, then yes, this is for you. You need to have excellent communication skills. You should be able to convey, and also you should be able to listen and analyze, from synthesize that information from the HCP and analyze it into the clinical insights. Then certainly you should be someone who is good at valuing long-term relationships with these professional KOLs. You should be able to strategize. You should be able to see. An MSL needs to pull up the significance from the insignificant data. So you should be able to weed out the redundancies of a conversation, and from the gist of the conversation, you should be able to pull the clinical insights out for your pharmaceutical company to work on those insights in the future, and to come up with the new trials, something on those lines, right? So yeah, if you have these qualities, then yes, it is about you. And this was about a very brief overview about on medical affairs as a division in the pharma. So if you would ask me, we can call medical affairs as the scientific bridge between the pharma company and the HCPs who seek the scientific information from the uh, company who has developed a particular drug, and not just a sales pitch they are looking forward to. Then compliance is paramount, and it is a data-centric function, and certainly it is an impactful career. It can be an impactful career if you have the right mindset. So this was about the first module. In the second module, we'll go ahead and discuss some commonly used abbreviations, many of them which we already have, like MSL, then HEOR, then KOL. So we will build on that basic knowledge. And thank you. Bye bye. Have a great day.